With the sparkle of the caverns behind you, and your two companions, the dwarf Giblin and your wizard Corn, you carefully enter a large, grand hall. The hall is dimly illuminated by torches and sconces along the wall. You step forward for a better look at the great pillars that are carved in the shapes of giants and dragons, the pillars reaching high, high up to the ceiling. The grandeur of this hall is no less than the splendor of the natural caverns of the Glitterham. "Something seems off," says Giblin. "This place is filled with death." You hear Quorum whisper words of a spell you've heard many times before as you suddenly feel a certain confidence and energy. As you slowly advance down the hall, a great throne on a dais becomes clear at the far end of the hall. You suddenly hear a harsh voice call out from the shadows, "Go back the way you came. This is the only warning you will get." "Make me," exclaims Giblin as he steps forward, drawing his warhammer. As you take a few steps to the left to spread out, you grab an arrow from your quiver and notch it as you draw your bow all in one movement. You glance Quorum's way to notice he has gone invisible. You draw the arrow back, ready to let it fly. Then you see your foe, Duergar. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Teachers in the Dungeon. I'm Tom Gross.
This is Dan Ream. You're giving me flashbacks. PTSD, maybe more like. That is a familiar feeling that you just described there.
Yes, indeed. It was kind of fun to go back and revisit. If you're wondering, this is our dungeon show. I've done my homework, and now we are caught back up on our episodes. But our dungeon this week comes from the Tales of the Yawning Portal. It is the second module or dungeon in that book called The Forge of Fury.
I remember it well.
Yes, it was early in our group's campaigns. In fact, we had just finished the Sunless Citadel, and we transitioned right away straight to The Forge of Fury.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, in doing the little bit of research that I did for this, I discovered that originally these two modules were meant to go together.
Oh, okay.
As a possibility. So speaking of the original, The Forge of Fury was originally published in 2000 by Richard Baker, and it was made for the third edition. It was originally published, as I just mentioned, to be a follow-up to the Sunless Citadel. So
that's you could look at it as, oh, they're just recycling, but I think that was a really smart thing they did to bring the favorites into the new version or edition when they got to it.
Yeah, a lot of people have been modifying or like updating modules for years. And so to have an official version, official update, I think was really nice. I enjoyed flipping through the Yawning Portal. If you do not have the Yawning Portal, if just for memory's sake or just to see what some of the classic dungeons and adventures used to be, this is it. It is a ton of fun to go through this. But yeah, so we went through this, so I'm sure you recall that great hall, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit.
Yes.
So let me give you a little bit of lore of this, and I don't know if did you come across any lore along the way?
I did what I've done so far for this category, which is I look at reviews of the module. So I've got references to the lore.
Okay.
But no, this is all you, and I'll just.
All right. I always do like to hear the reviews. That's because I don't usually look for those, and I think it's interesting to hear what people have to say. Mm-hmm. Okay. So 2 centuries ago, Durgan the Black. Oh, I love that. Durgan the Black and his dwarven clan were driven from their ancestral home, and Durgan and his clan searched for years for a new home until they found a system of caverns below the Stone Tooth Hills. Durgan and his clan built a stronghold called the Kundarkar, where they built Durgan's forge, where he crafted fine swords and weapons. They were discovered by orcs and ravaged once and for all. I should have mentioned where they're originally driven away from was from orcs the first time. And so those orcs continued to hunt them. And so once they found the Stone-Tooth Hills and that they had embedded themselves in those caverns and built the forge, here they come, the orcs again. And powerful armies, big groups of orcs just came into the caverns and just ravaged Durgan and his entire clan. The caverns have been occupied since then by a number of different local creatures that use the Kundrakar as a base for raids or short-term lairs. But generally, monsters and raiders have hunted the caverns, searching for the legendary weapons and magic of Durgan the Black. And for the most part, at least in the upper levels of this dungeon, pretty well cleaned out. It's not until you get to some of the more secret areas that Durgan had built. They were still ravaged by the orcs, but must have remained hidden after that, because there's still quite a bit of loot, if you recall, in that area. So that's how the Forge of Fury was created. And the Forge of Fury the forge is related to Durgan because he was a master craftsman of weapons. In this adventure, you can come across several weapons that are marked with Durgan's symbol. One of them we called the Axe of Durgan, which my character Borum then carried for a while before giving it away to a real fighter in our group. But you can find things like that within this dungeon. So to talk about the dungeon itself, it has multiple layers, and even one of the layers is sort of I don't want to say it's a misdirect, but it's a dead end, and you have to go back and work your way through the last layer you were just in. So there is the mountain door, then there is the Glitterham, which I mentioned in my narrative. Oh, speaking of the narrative, if you've been enjoying those narratives, let us know. Because it's fun to make those, but at the same time, I don't want to bore people. So if you've been enjoying the narratives, let us know. Today's might not have been the best example. If you want to hear some good ones, go back and listen to our dragons and other dungeons. But nonetheless, we have fun doing those. So the second level is the Glitterham. Then there is the Sinkhole, and the Foundry, and then the Black Lake are the main levels of the Forge of Fury. So to start with, the mountain door, it is the front door of the Glitterham. And so it implies by its name that it's just a door. It's really the whole level. And it's just sort of the entryway to, just think of a massive entryway to, your lair or whatever. This is a big, big space. But the door is a formidable fortress of natural defenses that was improved on by the dwarves. So when you're in this area, you will come across a lot of the natural caverns, but then you also will come across crafted corridors and rooms that will eventually lead to a natural rift, I guess, that leads to the lower levels where one can see darkness and hear running water. But the mountain door, go ahead.
We did this 5 years ago, 6?
Yeah, 5 or 6 years ago.
But I still, as you describe it still is sort of imprinted on my mind.
Yeah.
The different little scenarios and things that were set up.
Yes, and Chris actually led this part because Chris and I split DMing this module. And what I will always remember from that is there is a massive crevasse in this area that has a long rope bridge,
right,
that goes from a ledge to ledge. And that was not easy to navigate because, of course, there's something there.
Right.
And what's there's a clan of orcs that have sort of taken ownership or created their home base in this mountain door area. And so you have to deal with them as you're trying to make your way into deeper levels of this. And so during this, you're constantly being just getting pot-shotted by these orcs just here and there, and they're kind of all over the place. and they don't have a lot of there's not a lot of stuff that you gain from them,
No.
other than entrance into the Glitterham. So I remember that it was a challenge to get through this area because I think the Sunless Citadel, you end at second or third level, and so they're orcs, which are tougher than goblins.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you come across a number of them, they can be somewhat formidable, especially when you're trying to navigate something like the rope bridge. So that is the mountain door.
There wasn't too much commentary I found, but it was generally favorable. The folks online that would comment on it, the one thing they did say is that the notes for the DM are rather spotty on this one, that the map has got corridors that sort of overlap and by level, and that part is relatively clear, but it requires a little bit of study and interpretation for the DM to understand how to make the best use of it.
I would agree with that, and I would say that comment is, for me, would be true throughout kind of the whole thing. There are a lot of things I just had to, not a lot. There are some things that I had to kind of put together myself, which is fine. I mean, it makes the DM work a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I would agree with that comment. Anything else on the mountain door online?
No,
Okay.
we can move on, I think.
All right. This is the grand, no, I shouldn't say grand. This is the naturally grand, and I mentioned it's a splendor, and this is the Glitterham. I'm not even sure I'm saying that right. It's glitter and then Hame. Glitterham.
I don't know how that's the thing about, I'm not entirely sure the people that create D&D have a super firm grip on linguistics. So I just pronounce it how it's spelled and say Glitterhame.
Okay, Glitterhame.
But I don't know.
To me, the most important part is the first half of that word, and that's glitter. Mm-hmm. Because
Because Tom loves glitter.
Yeah, I do love glitter. Not. In a house full of, I'm the only guy in the house. There's plenty of glitter around my house, and so you might call my house the Glitterham or Hame. Well, it is the largest level of the Kundakar. It is a maze of beautiful, beautiful caverns, and this is what caught the eye of Durgan when they came to the Stone Tooth. And so as you pass through this Glitterham, the walls of the cavern sparkle in light. There's just a constant sparkle as you're walking through with your light, torches, whatever it is you're using. And I remember Borum kind of cracking into the walls of some of these to see what is this? And they're just semi-precious stones that have emerged in the cavern walls. One thing I didn't mention in the mountain door that is kind of throughout in different places is Durgan's clan did lots of wall art and carving of their clan throughout. And so it starts in the mountain door, and then there's places in the Glitterham where you have that. But speaking of sculptures or being sculpted, there's a river that runs through the Glitterham that is eroded and is part of what made this such a beautiful area. And so the river in this level is not quite as treacherous as other places, but the river is notable for that reason. There are layers of creatures throughout this level. You just kind of stumble upon them in different places. There are troglodytes on this level. There are, I'm trying to think what the other things are. They're escaping my mind, but the troglodytes are really the main foe in this level. Dealing with them, and of course they enjoy being in that watery area. There's kind of the river sort of ponds into a marshy type area, which is where you would encounter them. And if you haven't noticed already, we give spoilers here. This book has been around a long time. So if you're about to play this, don't go back and listen to another dungeon and come back to this one later. So yeah, you will come across creatures throughout this lair. there is a massive, I don't know if you remember this, a massive fungus cavern that you have to navigate through, because you know what, when there's fungus, there are spores. And when there's spores, something poisonous is usually around. And so you need to navigate through that carefully. But it is a giant, giant cavern. In fact, it might be the largest area of the Glitterham, this fungus cavern. It's almost like a fungus forest. But you also, probably the most notable thing that you come across that is important to the lore is you come across an area of dwarven's, I never say this word right, sepulchres. And basically it becomes pretty clear that the dwarves knew what their fate was going to be. And so this is a sepulchre area. I think there's 15 of them, of all of his Durgeons, like lieutenants and colonels and high up people. And so they're all here. Some of them are opened and looted, and some of them haven't been touched. And I seem to remember you guys digging around in one, but it paid off because there was some magic in there. I think, I don't remember. It was one of Durgeon's weapons. It wasn't the axe, but one of Durgeon's weapons is in that area. So the Glitterham then has 2 exits. One of them you are more likely to come by first. You have to go through the entire length of the Glitterham and the caverns to get to the second one. So we'll deal with the first one first. There is a sinkhole that the river flows into, and next to that sinkhole is a spiral stair. And so if you go down the spiral stair, you enter the level that is, well, aptly named the sinkhole. This is a treacherous trip, because when you get down into that area, the floor has a curvature to it, but the only way to get past this area where you come down the stairs is to kind of shimmy your way alongside this raging river, which you realize is not the river that's up above you is not a raging river, but it pours into this raging. So this is a secondary river, 2 different rivers. Sure. And so this one is secondary, but you have to shimmy along this area to continue on. And I don't know if you remember that somebody had plate armor or like a heavy armor. I don't remember exactly if it was our paladin or who had that.
That was him.
And there were some troubles with that because there was negative rolls on dex saves and things like that. This isn't where anybody fell in, though. There's another treacherous area that you have to get past that someone did fall in, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But so you start with a whole bunch of dex rolls to be able to get someplace. I was kind of surprised that they didn't put like sturges or something in here for you to have to deal with while you're dealing with this. But it is 2nd, 3rd level, so I guess that's probably why they didn't. If I were thinking, I would have done it in hindsight, but I guess if you want your players to continue, keep the sturges where they belong. One thing you do notice, though, and it kind of goes to what I was just saying, is you do notice that it is curiously empty. This level is curiously empty of just random encounters. No orcs here, no troglodytes here. I mentioned, so there's nothing here, and there is a reason that I'll leave for you to figure out eventually, but there is a reason for it. As you continue down this sinkhole level, you will come across some areas that the dwarves did carve out some rooms, and so this level really became sort of a storeroom area. There are lots of different storerooms in this area that are currently of many different states of condition. One of the storerooms is completely flooded. One is just plain empty, and the other one is overrun with fungus. That in all 3 of these rooms will have some type of a disease, poison, oozes. You'll find that on this level, especially in these storage rooms. So if you survive, your curiosity may get the best of you as you continue along here. Do you have anything on the sinkhole, or I kind of passed over the Glitterham as well?
For both of these, it does well to just kind of lump them together. The main notes were that it is quite possible for parties to bypass the monsters and the hazards in some of these areas, and the folks that wrote the reviews even suggested that you could leave the sinkhole out entirely because it is quite deadly, or can be, compared to some of the other parts of the dungeon. So that's really the main thing there. Is it certainly can ramp up the excitement and danger level, but it's not essential.
And we had some fun because I've left off do you remember what creature was down here?
I do.
Do you want to share? Because it almost did you guys in.
Yes, a roper.
Yes. And it is disguised. I mean, ropers disguise themselves. So across this raging river, there is a platform that looks really enticing, like there might be something over there. In fact, I think the roper lures you over with something shiny. I can't remember now how I got you guys to investigate over there. In fact, I'm not even sure that you had to investigate over there because the roper was able to reach across the river with its tentacles. So I think it just got your curiosity, and when you turned away from it, then it lashed out and it grabbed a couple of you. One, it discarded on the ledge next to it and dealt with you with its mouth and things like that. And the other one is just kind of whipping around and eventually dropped that character into the raging river. They give lots of warnings to the DM here about the raging river. And I don't know, maybe in hindsight, I shouldn't have done that to you guys, but it wouldn't have been as ton of fun if someone had died. But it was very stressful in the room. I remember because there were lots of save rolls of like you guys trying to rope them. Someone, I even want to think, dove in. But once you get into a certain place, the river goes into a subterranean tunnel where you just will die. You will suffocate, and there's no rescuing you. So it's quite certain death if you go into there. And so you knew that. And I for the life of me, cannot remember how it eventually came that you rescued the character thrown into the river.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
But I just remember there were a number, like all of you were trying something to like grab that character that was flailing. And it was really treacherous. So you might say, as a DM, why, other than, putting your characters in dire straits, why would you use the sinkhole? If you make it past the roper, there is a prison. And there's about 6 cells there. Most of the cells are empty, but the very last one has the corpse of one of Durgan's lieutenants, captains. And what you find there is he has a key. And that key is really important.
Got it.
Now, it's not to say that you can't continue without that key. The key just makes it really a lot easier. But you can, if you have a knock, you have to have the right spells, because the door that you use this key on, if I remember right, you cannot open it, you cannot pick it, it has to be a magical opening. And I think one of you either had a knock spell or we had to spend the night, get the knock spell, and then use that to open it or something. I don't remember exactly how you guys did it, because I don't know if you got I don't remember you guys getting the key. But you defeated the roper, so I don't know, you must have. Anyway, that's the whole point of this level, is to go get that key. So where does the key come in handy? Well, you go back, you trudge your way back up in, you have to do all the save rolls again to slip by the river on that slopey area and hope you get there. You go back up the spiral stairs, make your way down the rest of the Glitterham to the end of the cavern, and there's a door there. That's what the key is used for. So once you open that door, you are entering the foundry level. You actually go through that door and go upstairs. So it's not a deeper level, it's just a different level. And you go upstairs, and this is where Durgan and his clan carved out their own footprint of this cavern and this dungeon, and they created an elaborate citadel and foundry on this level. The foundry was ransacked by the orcs, and the orc army, but they did not ransack it to a point of destruction. So the forge still is functioning, and you discover is being used
Right.
in this whole thing, which is where I was going with my narrative at the beginning. That narrative describes this entry to this whole area. One thing that I didn't go into great detail on my research on this, but that I do remember in getting into this citadel area, is there's lots of like mechanical, not traps, but like puzzles on how to get in. There's some statues that you have to do something with, and then that allows you to open the door to the citadel itself. One feature about the foundry level that is unique to the others is there's one way in and one way out. I'm sorry, there's 2 ways in and 2 ways out. Where all the other levels, there are multiple ways to the surface world. You just have to find them. This level does not have that. You have to go to another level to get out of the foundry.
I see.
So that's kind of a cool point. And it makes sense because Durgan would have wanted his foundry and his citadel to be protected in that way, where you'd have to conquer at least another level to be able to make it to this, which the orcs clearly did. So features include the hollow statues, which I described in the narrative. Connected to the back of, behind the dais where the throne is where the foundry is, and the forge, where Durgan did his work of creating weapons and armor. There is a massive chasm that I'll come back to, and there is an armory, and there are a number of chambers. I don't know if you had any memory or
a couple things
about those.
A couple things. First, memory is I do think that level was the closest our party ever came to a TPK.
Yeah,
was our fight in there, and you actually kind of allowed me a rule of cool to do a little more than I should have been able to in one turn, but I believe I was the last or the second to last character standing.
Yeah.
And I basically had to zoom around the room like I was a tabaxi, like throwing medical kits, basically.
Yes.
So that, the other thing you mentioned, a lot of rooms, that is one note that some of the reviewers said, is that there's a room, like there's 10 different copies of essentially the same room. And they said that was a bit much. That as a DM, you could feel free to leave some of those out. Yeah.
I mean, I gave them all to you, but when you would open a door and there's nothing there, I just let you believe that there was nothing there. However, I did do a trickery once because I knew there was a room coming up with something. And so I was like, well, wait, if I'm just telling them, no, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Okay, now in this room, you might want to take a look around. Okay, so something's there. And so I did fill some rooms with some curiosities that just kept you on your toes so that I could surprise you with some of the things that are in there. The thing that, I won't go into specifics, but there is a lot of undead and a lot of unrest on this level because of the tragedy of the orcs and Durgan's clan. So most of the undead is very agitated and wanting to fight and kill. Because anything that comes in is an intruder, and that just reminds those undead of that. At least that's how I played it. That wasn't necessarily described in the book, but that's how I played it. Is any intruder is an intruder.
Yeah.
But the Duergar have moved into this level. And so in the Citadel, the Hall of Statues, the Forge, and then some of the rooms the Duergar have occupied. They stay away from where obviously they know where the undead is, and so they left that part alone. But so you do encounter the Duergar. They will talk and be diplomatic with you, which is a little strange for Duergar, but you're a curiosity. They don't see a lot of people, so anything that they do, any negotiations, though, will most likely go their way or should go their way.
Right.
They hold the keys to your success in this, and so your party had given them some things to fix and repair, and they took some coin from you to do some of this. and they had no intention of giving it back.
That's what I was going to say, is don't ever give them a magical sword to repair.
No, they're not giving that back. And, I would say for parties in this, it's probably wise to not fight the Duergar. I think you did fight them for a little bit, but then it got you out of there. Like, I don't know, you guys negotiated with them, but then something went wrong. I don't remember what it was. So you did end up fighting them, but you did not eliminate them. Mm-hmm. You managed to get into where the undead are, and then they kind of left you alone after that. There's another fairly formidable opponent in this area, but you guys didn't fall for it. There's a harpy on this level that I thought I had Rix suckered in, and I think you guys saw what was happening, and I think you just attacked her.
Harpy or?
Succubus. Yeah, I think it's a succubus. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And so you guys attacked the succubus because Rix was completely enamored and charmed by her. Mm-hmm. So I probably didn't play it the best, but
no. I was thinking about that. That's one of the comments in the reviews was this level has about the only opportunity for role play in the dungeon.
That is true. You could do a little bit in the mountain door with the leader of the orc clan, but really they attack you first, so there's not a lot. But yes, the Duergar are about the only thing, and then the succubus has some interesting role play that you can do. So that takes you to there's a great chasm that's kind of, you have to go around the forge to get to the chasm, and it is massive. Something massive could come up this cavern if it wanted to, and has been known to do.
Yeah.
But there is a ladder you guys discovered that goes down this cavern, which seems so random, but there are dwarvish things down below. So, and this is the second entrance and exit to this floor. So you've got the Great Chasm, and then you've got the Glitterham. Those are the only two ways in here. And all the other exits, except for the mountain door, are pretty well hidden. You would have to know that this location outside is where you would go to find an entrance to this dungeon. So you go down the ladder, and you guys all went down the ladder, of course. And it's really geographically a simple dungeon. It's natural caverns. There's no dwarven. There's two dwarven structures, which are both bridges, and there's another river down here. And you have to go over the river on one bridge, then you walk down a ways, and you go over another bridge, and then it opens up into the Black Lake. And out on the Black Lake is a little island. And so you guys got curious, and I don't remember. Oh, was it you that dove in and started swimming?
No,
someone.
I had spider climb boots or something like that.
That's right.
And I forget who. Someone else did start swimming, but I don't remember who that was.
Yeah, and so you guys weren't obnoxiously loud, but you were loud enough. And you made enough, like going up walls and into the water and all of that you roused the interest of the denizen of this area, because you just entered the lair of a young black dragon.
Yeah.
And his name is Nightscale. And so you don't really have an opportunity, because he's a black dragon, to negotiate with him. He really pretty much just attacks.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't really play this very well. It wasn't necessarily an easy battle for you guys.
No.
Because there's a ledge that you get on, and then he uses the wave, like his lair action of like a wave or tidal wave. And I remember he like pushed a couple of you down back under the bridges and things like that. And then one of the bridges collapsed while you were trying to go over it. And so a couple of you were out of the fight for a while you were down.
And I was rolling. I figured I was so smart, get up there on the roof and take pot shots, because I was a rogue and I could not hit. I rolled so badly.
Yeah. But then a spell is what really brought Nightshade down for you guys. It was a command spell, and that's where I misplayed it. I didn't use his resistances properly, and so I guess the point of this could really be a deadly fight for the group if they're not ready for it.
That's one of the comments in the critiques were that it's listed as a level 4, and whoever was writing this said it really should be level 7 challenge. But other than that, just high praise. Really fun, really scary.
Yeah.
That there's enough telegraphing that a party should have a pretty good idea of what they're going to come up against.
Yeah. Yeah, there's several hints throughout. Like, so what comes up the Great Chasm? Oh, a black dragon every now and then.
Yeah.
And that's why the sinkhole doesn't have any really creatures in it, because the black dragon visits the sinkhole area from time to time, or comes up that river from time to time. And that was, as a DM, that was kind of a fun part of the black dragon, is that you could have aerial attacks, you could have land attacks, and it also would go underwater and just pop up in different places, which was kind of fun to surprise you guys in that way. But it's a worthwhile battle if you survive it, because he has a massive horde.
Yes.
Where did all of Durgan's stuff go? A lot of it went to the orcs, but the rest of it went to Nightshade. And so you find some... Say again. Oh, Nightscale. Yes, thank you. There are some... This is where you find Durgan's axe and some other goodies. There's like a wand of magic missiles. And, as a DM, of course, you have the liberty of putting anything you want out there.
I got a belt of, I don't know, it was giant strength or ogre strength, but my poor, sad little wimpy rogue suddenly got a +5 to his strength to go along with his +5 dex. And that was fun.
I mean, a lot of this stuff we still have in the party.
Yeah.
That still is out there. Like the Exodurgeon is still there. I think that Wand of Magic Missiles is around, but no one's really used it much. It's probably in that bag of holding that Rix carries around.
He never shares it.
Yeah, that's right. So you can leave the dungeon from that place, from that river, that lake, or you can go back through if you want to, especially if you negotiated something with the Duergar and think that they might actually follow through. You could bring them riches to try to persuade them, things like that. So that is the dungeon itself. As far as some fun creatures and NPCs that you will come across, we've talked about several of them, but here's just a list of things that you will come across. Of course, the black dragon we just mentioned. We've mentioned the orcs and the troglodytes. There is an ogre that is the leader of the orcs. And so that's a pretty decent battle when you've got the orcs and the ogre leader that you have to deal with. We talked about the roper. I mentioned oozes. You might come across some undead like ghosts and things like that. There is the succubus, the Duergar. You might even find some animated furniture. Oh, the Great Ulf is what the ogre he goes by. And he also has in that area Burdug, the shaman. Then I mentioned Sturges earlier, that they were absent, but there are Sturges in this. What's a cavern dungeon without Sturges? And there are also, interestingly, some dire wolves down here as well that somebody has. So lots of unique creatures that you might not think would be down here, but then some really traditional ones like the Duergar and the orcs and troglodytes. Oh, the troglodytes are one that you might not expect down here, but the roper...
Yeah.
I'd never DM'd a roper before. That was the first time I'd ever done that. Those are cool.
That's one of those ones that in the first edition that just got such a goofy picture.
Right.
They've improved those a lot.
It's much more intimidating now.
Yep.
So yeah, there we go. Any final thoughts on that?
So the critiques describe this as generally a treasure hunt, a hack and slash. It's not a character-driven adventure, but that being said, it is a great dungeon crawl. If you've got a party that wants to go in, beat stuff up, get stuff, it's really good. They said that it's some of the other commentary was it's very good for inexperienced DMs and parties. That because, and I thought perfect that you chose that when you guys did for us, because I think that was exactly true. You don't have to you don't have to know a lot of the nuances of D&D to play this.
Right.
And so they do go on to say, if you're going to put this in front of veterans, you're going to have to tart it up a bit. You're going to need to add some flavor to make it a little more worthwhile. They said because on the negative side of that simplicity is there's not a lot of hooks to continue the story, that you as a DM would have to take something and run with it pretty far. And so a couple examples that I saw were, maybe as a DM you could make the party curious about the origin of these Durgar. Where did they come from?
Yeah.
What do they want? Or the other one is the succubus. If you do allow her to escape, she's not a nice person, so she might cause some havoc somewhere else.
Got it.
So maybe the party has to track her down. And
I mean, there is a village not too far away where you actually can start if you want to. So that might be interesting if she goes to the village and starts taking advantage there.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Forge of Fury sounds like just a classic archetypal dungeon crawl.
Yes, indeed. So we had a good time playing through it. This is really where then it launched into your part of the, I think you took over the group from this.
Yes.
And I don't know that, have we gone back to anybody else in that group? I think it stayed with you.
Yes, we haven't because
you took us to a different land.
At first I thought I was going to stay in the same land, but then I realized I was just not a very prepared DM, and I didn't go and look at the actual maps.
Oh, I see.
And I realized it really wouldn't work, so we quietly just retconned to the point where you're in a different plane now. Totally worked.
So, yeah, I think that's legit. There wasn't much to go on after this. Nothing that leads you to something else. It really would be up to the DM to then move on to the next thing.
Which is not necessarily a negative if you've had a heavy, maybe you've had a heavy campaign of political intrigue and social role play in the city. This is a nice palate cleanser. You've heard tell of some loot available. You guys want to go check it out?
Yeah.
So.
Well, there you go. The Forge of Fury.
Yes.
If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. If you've played through the Forge of Fury yourself, we'd love to hear your experiences and your feedback as to what you liked and what you didn't like about it, and or what you added. Maybe you did put the Sturges in that slopey area and really gave your party a hard time.
We'd love slipped on the blood.
Yes, that's right. And so love to hear your feedback on that. We'll share it on the show, of course. Thanks to you so much for joining us here in the dungeon. Don't forget that you can join us on the socials, Instagram and Facebook, Teachers in the Dungeon. We're on Twitter @Dungeon Teachers, and be sure to check out the YouTube page as well. So for Dan Ream, I am Tom Gross. Until next week, keep rolling those 20s.